Hello, hello. Hello? There we go.
Hello, coming through now.
Okay, mashallah. Alhamdulillah. Marhaba. So, I'm so used to not nowadays, unfortunately, not having class on a Sunday because of the restructuring and the online way. So I prefer coming to class at home, but when you come back and you have the extension, then I'll come back. So they said to me this Sunday now. So I said, no problem. So 9 o'clock, I was hanging around at home. Then my wife bought the phone. She said, no, it's an emergency message. You need to be in class in 15 minutes. I said, 15 minutes? She said, no, Mount View class. I said, subhanallah. Then I just remembered that I need to be here. So forgive my coming a bit late, inshallah. And then today, normally I just start teaching, like from the Surah and so forth. But today I'll basically need a little bit of the aid of the tafsir. So I'm going to do more like of a traditional, classical type of approach where I'm reading and just sharing with you what I'm reading and so forth. Subhanahu wa ta'ala. And our surah for today would be Surah Muzammil. Surah Muzammil. Now, so the first thing we ask normally 3 questions, if you recall our sort of methodology, which I find to be quite beneficial. The first question we ask would be, we just delve in terms of the word surah, which is very simple. The literal meaning of the word surah would be jidar, would refer to a wall. It's our normal standard approach. But then the surah refers to a high wall. And you'll find that in the Quran, the word suwarun is mentioned as a high wall. So what is meant thereby, the wajhu tasmiyah, they refer to it in Arabic, the reason why something is called something. So the reason why surah is called surah because it contains high and lofty meanings. Okay? So therefore, like I would mention to you before, that Sheikh Salih Al-Abbadi, one of our pious predecessors, like they used to say, people used to say, we read a small surah. So they used to say there's nothing like a small surah. So if you understand the meaning of the word surah, it may be brief in terms of the amount of verses, but in terms of meaning, it's absolutely amazing. Yeah. So actually, if you look at the relationship in terms of Quran, I mentioned this before. So Abu Bakr radiallahu anh, he used to prefer the shorter chapters because it's easier to memorize and it's easy for you to, just have to read around the meanings. And you would find that, look at the ultimate example. وَلَقَدْ آتَيْنَاكَ سَبْعًا مِنَ الْمَثَانِي وَالْقُرْآنِ الْعَظِيمِ. The 7 of repeated verses is the Fatiha. And then the Fatiha is basically unpacked in the entire Quran. In other words, the meanings of the entire Quran is contained in the Fatiha. That is a standard approach. Therefore, you find Imam Shafi'i mentioning that if only Surah Al-Asr was revealed, then it would have sufficed for the guidance of humanity. So, things are mentioned concisely and then unpacked, which is a very unique thing in terms of literature in general and the role that the Quran plays. Particularly if you consider the Quran is a literary work and then works prior to the Quran. Not necessarily literary because the Arabs didn't have a literal tradition, they had an oral tradition. But when they used to have any rendition, it used to be long-winded, and the more long-winded it was, the better it was considered to be. So Quran basically comes and gives you the same thing that you would maybe do like in long-winded, and basically give it to you in a short chapter. And the shorter it is, the more impactful it is. Almost like it's not the proper example, but dynamite comes in small packages. So Quran brings a unique aspect to literature from that particular perspective. And if you make it applicable to our times, what's happening in our times? If you look at literature and writing and all of those type of things. Come again? Okay, there's an abbreviation for everything. What about just normal writing? You find that the intellectual or academic has basically been watered down and sort of very much dumbed down. So people don't have the same appreciation that they would have for poetry like before, or like good quality prose that they would have before. Actually, if you speak to like some person today, he'll tell you, but why didn't you tell me that straight? Like people don't have that finesse to actually read between the lines, to catch on. Like, you know, they say in Arabic, al-aqilu takfil ishara. Nowadays, you can't use language that's like, imagine you could basically use language that's not confrontational, but the person gets the idea. People don't get the idea nowadays. What does it talk about? Lack of, you know, capacity, you know, and it's just, some of our scholars lament it because it's problematic when people don't have depth in terms of understanding, and you can't really like very civilly and culturally interact with people. Why? Because people not at a level of understanding. They don't appreciate those things. You know, one day in class I said, I believe that you're in a family way. I believe that you're in a family way. So if I'm talking to a lady, you know, I can't say like, you know, from a cultural point of view, you're pregnant. That's like very it's like very, you know, maybe it's like actually I'm encroaching on you, you know, like, but if I can ask, I believe that in a family way, something, what do you call that now? Nothing in the oven, how old people used to say. Okay, so sometimes they say like, you know, that's also like sometimes people can be unnecessary, insensitive to other people, like putting pressure on them, nothing in the oven, like, look, you got to get baking and put something in the oven, you know, type of things. Not like, but to understand, you know, it's like people understand on that particular level, so it's important. Yeah. So this surah, there's no such thing as a small surah. Why? Because the meanings are always surah and always high. So that's the first thing we discuss. The second thing we discuss would be the surah is a Makki or Madani. And what we mean thereby is very simple. Was it revealed prior to the Hijrah or was it revealed after the Hijrah? So those are the two phenomena. And the third phenomenon we look at would be what is the name of the surah or what are the names of the surah? So those are basically you'll find that every other surah we're going to do, we're going to ask ourselves these three questions. I think it's a nice format just to facilitate for us, gaining a better idea and knowledge of the surah. So in terms of the name, this particular surah, I've read the first part of it, and Allah SWT knows what's best. They say, لَيْسَتْ لِهَذِهِ surah إِلَّا اسْمٌ وَاحِدٌ. You find certain surah, they have multiple names. I'm thinking of Surah to Zalzala. It's also called Surah to Zilzal. It's also called Surah to Idha Zulzila. And then it has a number of other names as well, just because of the theme and the content of it. But Surah Muzammil only has one name. It's basically only known as Surah Muzammil. So it's quite unique from a certain perspective, in that it only has one name, Surah Muzammil. Now, so when you look at the word al-Muzammil, and now the other thing we also said that, look, is there a definite, how can I say, a corollaries connection between the name of the surah and the theme of the surah? There may be, but it's not corollaries. It doesn't mean that that's the name of the surah, that the surah revolves around a particular theme. Many times, and the most famous example for you would be Surah Al-Baqarah. Surah Al-Baqarah doesn't revolve around the Baqarah. It's simply that the incident of Baqarah, which really stands out because it's quite a unique story. That particular incident is mentioned there, or, you know, what do you call it? The word Baqarah comes in the surah, and therefore the surah is termed as Surah Al-Baqarah. But it's not necessary that you have a name, and that name doubles up as the theme of the surah. Likewise, in this particular instance, Al-Muzammil doesn't, it's because the surah starts off with Ya Ayyuhal Muzammil, that it gets the name of Ya Muzammil, as opposed to the whole surah revolving around a concept referred to as Muzammil. And Allah SWT knows what's best. No. So the word can either be used just because of the word Muzammil coming, or alternatively, when you read Surah Al-Muzammil, what comes to your mind? Ya Ayyuhal Muzammil. What comes to your mind? The Al-Muzammil is a, what do you call it now? Like a sifa, like a condition of who? Of the Prophet ﷺ. You know, I don't know if you guys listen to the nasheed. Zammiluni, Zammiluni, Dathiruni, Dathiruni. talking about, like basically just giving wording to the Prophet ﷺ when he comes from the cave of Hira, and then, he comes to his wife, and he says to her, Dathiruni, Dathiruni, Zammiluni, Zammiluni. Now, well, just remind me to speak a bit about that as we go along, or maybe just when we end with the class. I think it's a very important concept to talk about, that the whole idea of the Prophet coming back from the cave of Hira, the condition he finds himself in, that leads to this particular phenomenon of Zammiluni, Zammiluni, or Dathirun, Dathirun. Maybe we must discuss it now. Maybe we can discuss it now. Okay, this one here, you must engage with me, right? Because I think it's a very important topic, right? So I don't know where to start with this thing. Yeah. I want to discuss it like in like a box, man. So that we, life by the inch is a kinch. So just take it bite size. So the first phenomenon would be in one of our primary works on Islamic theology, scholastic theology. In other words, in terms of our belief, what do we believe? So generally, we believe in amantu billahi كما هو بأسمائه وصفاته وقبيل جميع أحكامه. آمنت بالله وملائكته وكتبه ورسله. I believe in Allah, His angels, His books, and His messengers. I find an easy way to think about that would be Allah, right, sends His angels with a book to the messenger. That's how it works. You can remember it easily. So we believe in messengers, do we? Okay. Now, prophethood, or being a messenger, right? Is it something that you can earn, or is it something which is God-given? That's the question. It's God-given. Does everybody agree? Objections are raised. How come Muhammad was a messenger and nobody else was a messenger? Allah chooses whom He wants to in terms of prophethood. So the scholars in one of our books is called Jawarat al-Tawheed. They say, وَلَمْ تَكُنْ نُبُوَّةٌ مُكْتَسَبَةٌ وَلَمْ تَكُنْ نُبُوَّةٌ مُكْتَسَبَةٌ. Prophethood cannot be earned. وَلَوْ رَقَى فِي الْخَيْرِ أَعْلَى عَقَبَةٌ. Even if a person exerts himself to the greatest exertion in terms of gaining spiritual, growth and so forth, no matter how a person applies himself, you cannot earn, nubuwwah. You follow me? So that's the first thing. Allah, it's granted by Allah. It's like, maybe if you can look at something like, certain things are even in relation to you, right? Certain things are Wahhabi and certain things are Kasbi. Wahhabi means God-given, and Kasbi means you can play a role in earning it. Okay? So let's say, for example, do you have a long breath? Like a long breath, like you can hold your breath for long. Okay, but now what happens is, let's just say you want to extend your breath. Like, can you practice enough that, look here, you actually extend your breath? Yes, you can. But now what happens, so you can have a long breath. Now ask you, okay, you have a long breath. But now your voice, right? I'm saying, like, can you work so hard on your voice that you actually change your voice? Before you answer, scholars have a difference of opinion. The majority says, no, you can't. Your voice is your voice. So I'm giving you two examples of things that the one is you can extend your breath. You work hard, you swim maybe, you practice holding your breath and whatever the case may be, then you extend your breath. Kasbi, you can earn it. Other things are Wahhabi. No matter what you do, you can stand on your head, right, and try to change your voice. It's almost like myself, Sheikh Ismail. Of course you know him, but now you see myself now. If I must bacha, and Sheikh Ismail must bacha, I can stand next to him for my whole life. I'm still not going to bacha like him. The voice, man. Maybe I can practice and get my, like he can bacha the Fatiha maybe in one breath. I also whack it for you, like in one whole breath. I may be able to do that, but my voice, alhamdulillah, Allah's giving me the. You with me? So I just want you to understand through an extraneous example how certain things you can earn it, and other things, look here, it's God given. That's it. Look, I mean, we want to, Unfortunately, we live in today's time where this thing, what I'm telling you now, is becoming increasingly strange. Because nowadays, gender is not God-given. You can change that. You know, there's so much things that this is basic traditional understanding of the way the human being is. And if you come to terms with that, and then you will live such a peaceful existence. But now the laws of Allah are violated, not only the legislated laws, but the natural laws also. What do you mean not? What do you mean not kasbi? I can make kasb of becoming a female, for example. I can become a male, or whatever the case may be. It's just ridiculous if you really look at it. But the traditional understanding, which is a proper understanding, has always been that there are certain things which are wahbi and there are certain things which are kasbi. Prophethood is one of those things which are God-given. That's number one. Okay. Why is it important for us to understand that? Because the prophets, if you wanted to, right, they didn't set out wanting to earn prophethood. It was something which was thrust upon them. So now, I mean, this might, Buddha Adam, it might even sound very strange to you. You will be honest with me, does it sound strange? Like it was thrust upon them, literally. So before we come to the Prophet, let's look at the story of Musa. What happened to Musa? So he fled from Egypt, right? Lower Egypt. And where did he go to? He went across to Madian. Now it's like in the Middle East, you know, like the bedrock of the old civilization. You have Palestine up in the north. You have Bakka down in the south. And in the middle of the two, close to Egypt, Lower Egypt, what do you have? You have Madian, right there in the Gulf. So he flees to Madian. After he flees to Madian, he's making his way back to Egypt now, isn't it? Whatever, he gets lost in the desert. And now it's nightfall. So they need to make a fire. What does he see? He sees a fire in the distance. What happens? We lost. Perhaps I can get guidance, somebody to show us the right way. And then I'm going to get some like firewood and then we can make our own fire. When he comes there, what happens? إنك بالوادي المقدس طوى فاخلع عليك إنك بالوادي المقدس طوى. Was Musa looking for prophethood? No. Allah. And then what happened was when Allah SWT sent him, now he says, ooh, you're sending me and then you're sending me all on my own. Look, no man. I help. And his brother again was like deputized and Allah appointed his brother. Point being that it was thrust upon. Now fast forward and come to the Prophet ﷺ. The Prophet ﷺ, what would happen? He used to go to the cave of Hira. And what happened was that he had this encounter with Jibreel. Number one is the encounter was a very dramatic encounter. Why was it so dramatic? Iqra ma ana biqari. Read. I'm not a reader. Read. I'm not a reader. Jibreel squeezed the Prophet ﷺ. Why was that? Because the Prophet ﷺ could very well tell himself that this is an internal voice speaking to me, an internal conscious. So it was important to impress upon the Prophet ﷺ that what you're experiencing is not an internal voice. This is coming externally. This is divine. It's coming from Allah through the angel of Jibreel, through the agency of Jibreel. Are you with me? Can you see what's happening here? That prophethood is thrust upon the messengers because Allah SWT enables them. If you look back, then you can see that Allah SWT has been preparing them all along for prophethood. That is also true. That's 100% true. But at the time they didn't know. It's like very much what happened is like, you know, Allah preparing somebody for death. Then they pass away. Then you look back and say, yo, I didn't see it like that. Because maybe a mother or father told you this, that, and the other, which was like really almost like a person preparing for death, but you heard, but you also didn't realize completely that look here, this person is preparing himself for death. Similarly, when they receive prophethood, now when you look back and say, okay, that was a preparation for me to come to this point. Yeah? So whilst that did happen, at the same time also it was thrust upon them. So it's coming from prophethood is a divinely bestowed gift. Number one, it's not from within; it's from without. It's divine in that particular way. Then the incident of the Prophet coming down from the mountain. What happened? He had seen Jibreel in the cave, and then he saw Jibreel alayhi salam in his proper form. What impact did this have on him? Look, I mean, if you look at he was capacitated to actually withstand that, because Allah says in the Holy Quran, Think about it. If you look at the sun, you can't look at the sun, you'll perish. You know, because it's just, I mean, I was looking at something, speaking of correction, the sun from us is a distance of 150 million kilometers. Is that correct? Sort of like they say from the core of the earth to the core of the sun, and you measure it, it's about 150 million kilometers. Look, it's like a massive distance. I Googled. I was Googling. So, so I can't say for sure, right? But I mean, it's like it's like a large amount, right? And that's how far is the sun. But you try to look at the sun, what will happen to your eyes? You'll be blinded. No. So now what the angels are made of? Light. Angels are made of light. So Allah sees the reason why He doesn't send down an angel, because if He had sent down an angel, you wouldn't be given respite. Is a literal word. What is respite? What does it mean? It means either that this is now a categorical proof, and if you deny categorical proof, then you have no excuse left. The other one is more a scientific approach. That if the angel were to come down, then if you put the angel next to you, then you're going to perish. It's almost like taking the sun and putting it right next to you. What's going to happen to you? I mean, if you from this distance, if you can't like behold the sun, what's going to happen to you? You're going to perish. You follow me? So the Prophet comes out of the cave of Hira, and what happens now? He sees the angel Jibreel in the form upon which Allah created him. So he was able to withstand that sighting, number one. But what impact did it have on him internally? He thought that he's going to perish. The Prophet ﷺ thought that he's going to perish because of the overwhelmingness of this experience. And Allah SWT had to orchestrate it in this way for the Prophet ﷺ to realize, it's almost like an induction, to realize, you know, what's going to be placed upon him and the responsibility which is going to be placed upon him. Now, you follow me? So that is where, and this is the circumstances in which the Prophet comes to his wife and says, Zammiluni, Zammiluni, Dathiruni, Dathiruni. Huh? And you follow me? I want to make 2 more points on this one. Is that what time does this period end? And I'm just asking. No, it's very important, but I'm also just asking. You know? Don't worry too much. 10 o'clock. So we're clear now. Alhamdulillah. So now we're all on Allah's grace now, right? So what happens is, extra time. So what happens is, there's 2 important points I want to mention. The Prophet he goes through this experience, right? And then what does he come? He comes home to his wife. And what does he tell his wife? Zammiluni. Zammiluni means like put a shawl over me, or dathiruni. In other words, like embrace me. So I don't know about, okay, you know what happens is, as a form of therapy, man, as a form of therapy, that interaction between 2 human beings. So what happens is, sometimes you're married, said your wife tells you, I need a hug, man. Do you understand what it means that she needs a hug? Sometimes they need too much hugs, man. You can't be hugging all day, you know. There's other work to be done also, right? But your wife has a need, man, you know, and says, I need a hug. So we get from Zammiluni and Dathiruni. And sometimes what happens is, your husband comes home, you can see, maybe not ask for a hug, but you know he needs a hug, so give him a hug. You know, it's very important. Must have many times, particularly, you know, when unfortunately when there's not that nice prophetic balance, and then we don't, and some people are different. I don't want to go into a Western thing because we don't do that type of thing, but they talk about it as love languages. Different people have different, some acknowledgement. Some people just need to be given a hug. The Prophet ﷺ, Dathiruni, Zammiluni, the Prophet ﷺ, you know, let's say he needed a hug. So sometimes people need a hug, and you give them the hug, Allah will reward you abundantly. And that's number 1. Number 2, and all of this, what I'm saying, basically comes down to the following fact. It's very important to understand this last point. All of the detail which I'm mentioning to you now, of just creating like a sketch in the background, is to tell you the following. The Prophet ﷺ, his greatness, the source of his greatness is what? In today's time, they project the Prophet ﷺ, what we perceive in a positive way, and it is a positive way, but they attach his greatness to his humanity, which is incorrect. It's leading to a different thought out there. And this thought process is called humanism, where man, he is in and of himself great. And his achievements is not because of an external force, but his achievements is because of himself. The Prophet ﷺ, yes, he was a great statesman. He was a great diplomat. He was a great leader. He was a great everything. But his greatest quality was that he was Rasulullah. And from that stemmed everything else. وَمَا مُحَمَّدٌ إِلَّا Rasul. Very important. And in today's time, you and I as Muslims, we actually fall prey to this type of idea out there. You know, that I can do it. Yes, you can do it. And you must believe in yourself. Power perceived is power achieved. But you must understand that your source of power is not yourself. Because yourself, you're limited. It is Allah. It's very important. And humanism goes to different levels, whereby if you become so much of a humanitarian, I'm not saying in terms of the aid type of thing, that you become so much reliant on yourself, that what happens is you're so self-sufficient that you don't need Allah. It's very problematic. And therefore, if we look at our tradition, what do you say all the time? La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. You say that all the time. And then you tell Allah, la takilni ila nafsi, don't hand me over to myself. Because you know what yourself is wrought with defects and so forth. So the balance in terms of Allah enabled you, so you must use that. But not to a point whereby Allah has enabled you, then you consider yourself as independent. It's almost like look at the child-parent relationship. You know, your parents enabled you. There was a time when you couldn't do anything for yourself, where you were totally dependent, and you will always be dependent. But now, ostensibly, you became independent, and then you run away with this idea of your independence. And then what happens is your relationship with those that saw to you in your time of dependency is ruined. So, the same for Allah. The human being is designed in a way that always reminds him, look here, you're not an island unto yourself. It's so much so now what happens is that in relationships also, you in a relationship, so I'm in a relationship with my wife. My relationship, she being my wife has created an enabling environment for me to grow. And the opposite also applies. But now when I've reached a certain level, then I'm like, it's because of me. And this is a Qarun, Fir'auni type of innama ala ilmi min ind myself. You with me? So now this whole idea of Ya ayyuhal Muzammil has so much for us. In terms of the context, in terms of the history, in terms of the different aspects of of the surah. If you look just at the context of what brought things to a point whereby Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying to his Ya ayyuhal Muzammil. Ya ayyuhal Muzammil. Now, so very important now for us. So so understand it on the deeper level and on the practical level. We must be that you be the you be the one providing the zammiluni in your homes. The thiruni. You're the one providing that desire, and that type of thing. And traditionally, it's supposed to be, and what we believe in, it's a lady's responsibility. So the thiruni, zammiluni. Mashallah, make nice the chai, tea, make nice the what you say. Don't worry, let me take off your shoes. I'll massage your foot. Put it nicely in warm water, chai, blanket, everything in order. Said, who was it now again? Khadija. Oh, Khadija. Where's all the Khadijas? And then you make our homes like that. No, but you want to be like that. No. A lady who was the source of comfort for the Prophet ﷺ. But now when the husband comes home, he comes with fire. The lady also, you come with fire, there's a bigger fire. You come with a fire home now because of whatever challenges you had, I'll give you bigger fire. No, give it a bit of the water, cool things down. Very important. Allah grant us a tawfiq. Inshallah. So all the ladies ready, inshallah? Shukran. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Come to the closing.
Sorry, can't hear you, Sheikh.
The sound is off again, Sheikh.
Assalamu alaikum. It's break time now, Sheikh, man, and what I wanted to say, I couldn't say it to you like so loud, man.
Yeah.
But inshallah, the class is actually formally concluded, man. If I didn't finish it, I sort of ending on a high note, man. You know, sometimes the nasheeds I listen to, normally when they come to the end, then I just go like, whatever. Then other nasheed I listen to, and the guy goes to like a high tone and then he stops. So I thought I tried to imitate that in the class, man. You know, just come on like a high note, and then when everybody's still looking at it, then I say, let's finish now. Allah put khair and barakah. Allah reward you. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.